Welcome back in, Geico Outkick Studios, Tuesday morning edition. We have had a loaded program. I encourage you to go download the podcast. Make sure you don't miss a single minute. Jason Whitlock with us in hour one, along with Jorge Masvidal, the UFC fighter. Whitlock hung out with us for a while in hour two as well. If you're just waking up with us, you know that on Tuesdays in the third hour of the program, we are joined, as you heard from the walk-up music from Taylor Swift, by the man, the myth, the legend, at the Old P, Petros Papadakis. A lot to get to before we get to the Lakers and what you thought of that Sunday night experience. Monday night, major LA sporting duopoly going on there, flipping back and forth. I was up late watching. I imagine many people across the country listening to us right now were as well. The Braves and the Dodgers, game one of the NLCS. The Dodgers score 4 in the ninth inning. And the Chargers, who, I mean, really, I mean, they are such a star-crossed football franchise. They find so many ways to lose. They doink a game-winning field goal off the upright, and then they get tackled 1 yard short of the first down in overtime in what would have been potentially a game-winning or game-tying drive. The positive is Justin Herbert looks absolutely phenomenal. But which one of those? Let's start with the Dodgers. I know it's game one of potentially a 7-game series. What can you take away, if anything, from game one last night and the Braves win?
Well, you take away that the Dodgers have bullpen issues. This kind of reared its head in the second game of the San Diego series, where the Dodgers didn't look like they had a closer. Kenley Jansen went out there. He already had lost a lot of people's confidence and really, really struggled. And they had to bring in Joe Kelly, and no one really knew what the protocol was going to be in a close game. And you saw it last night. They went with Trinan, who everybody's been in love with, along with the hard-throwing young man, Gratterall, who's thrown at 100 miles an hour. And he pitched very poorly. And they got peppered in the ninth inning, and it just starts the panic again and the negativity toward Dave Roberts. I mean, there's not a lot of margin for error for this Dodger team, because if they don't win the championship and they don't win the title, and you heard Buck and Smoltz saying it last night, the season's a failure. So when people see the bats, which are cansado, the Spanish word for tired, and they see that the relievers will struggle and give it up, all the nightmares of all the years, whether it was the Houston Astros cheating, or the buzzsaw that was the Boston Red Sox or the Nationals last year, and Kershaw giving up back-to-back jacks and getting clowned out of that. There's been a lot of things that have befallen the franchise, even though they've dominated the National League. And last night was kind of the beginning of the end of that again. Now, it's going to be a long series. It's a 7-game series. It's not a 3-game or a 5-game, and the Dodgers theoretically are the deeper, better team. But this Braves team is the first pitching staff they've taken on in the playoffs that is, like the Death Star, fully operational. And they struggled against it last night. Freed, who's from Harvard-Westlake,
that's right,
which is a bougie private school here in Southern Cal. You know who went to Harvard-Westlake back when it was called Harvard? Mark Harmon.
Oh, wow.
Former UCLA option quarterback and a starter,
Yes.
believe
Yes.
it or not. So, last night was a nightmare. The Panic Brothers will reveal themselves today on AM 570, your LA affiliate, which is one of your biggest markets, at noon. That will be Matt and I. We'll play the Panic Brothers sound. We'll get people all upset. I believe you like to call it fear porn,
yes.
Clay.
That's what
and
you guys are in the middle of.
Oh, think of us as a high society magazine or club or any of those that used to be at your local liquor store.
You know, it's interesting. Clayton Kershaw has had, obviously, a tumultuous, I think it's fair to say, postseason career. He's taken the mound for Game 2 now. I know it's a 7-game series, but if the Dodgers were to go down 0-2, that becomes really, really difficult, right? I mean, because then you have to
I don't know. I mean, it's like basketball. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nowhere to go. It's not like you have to get on a plane.
It's true.
And
there's no home field advantage
Yeah.
necessarily. There's
you don't
no
lose
like
the
real.
game and
Yes.
put your tail between your legs and fly back to Atlanta, and they tomahawk chop you until Ted Turner laughs at you, and you're humiliated. I mean, we saw this in the bubble. A lot of teams like Denver and the Heat were just really scrappy and wouldn't go away, and they could push really talented teams to the brink. So we'll see. Yes, it's the panic of the memories of the failures of the past that will start to creep up if they go 0-2. If Kershaw teeters tomorrow, well, then you have Walker Buehler, who they took out in the sixth last night, who was really pissed, and Clayton Kershaw. And those are really the only two guys they've allowed to start a game. They put Dustin May in all kinds of different situations. It just feels like they're still throwing statistical spaghetti at the wall. And that's what happens every postseason, and it seems to sort of fail the franchise.
We're talking to Petros Papadakis, AM 570 LA Sports, at the Old P on Twitter. And again, if the Dodgers were to lose tonight down 0-2, the challenge becomes you have to win 4 out of 5 games, right? I mean, that's the easiest way to look at the math. You even it up tonight, okay, everybody feels like it's going to be a 6 or 7 game series. We'll see how it goes going forward. The Braves have won now 6 games in a row. Suddenly they can't lose in the postseason.
Oh, I forgot. You're like a Braves guy.
My 10-year-old is a huge Braves fan, so we've watched the games for the past several years, yes.
Oh, so you're going to be all over this. All right, well, that'll be exciting. I hope it goes 7 games.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I'll be watching all these games. All right, so that is what happened with the Dodgers. The Chargers. I've got a stat here that Dub just sent me of what exactly has gone on for the Chargers so far this year. The Chargers, let's see what Dub just sent me. The Chargers have had a 17-6 lead against Mahomes, a 24-7 lead against Brady, and a 20-3 lead against Drew Brees. They have all been losses. Now, that is a negative, obviously, for the Chargers. Let's talk about the positive. You have watched Justin Herbert play a lot during his career at Oregon. You probably have called some of his games, I would think, almost.
Yes, I have.
I can't think of a rookie quarterback who has looked this good in the NFL that looks this much better than what he did his senior year. It's not like, Herbert was a short-lived starter in college. He looks better in the NFL than he did in college. Would you agree with that?
Well, right now he does, and
obviously
it's very different. First and foremost, the Chargers knew that they wanted to play close games this year. They had that type of coach. They have that type of coach. They have that type of mentality. Defensively, they had that type of starting quarterback. But if you want to play tight games, you have to find a way to win them, right?
Yes.
You have to overcome. I mean, you and I can both agree on one thing, Clay. I've been on a lot of bad football teams in my life. And the narrative on those football teams is always, on film day, is, oh, God, if this guy would have just done this, this would have happened. And, oh, look at how we just missed this. We were this close. We were a pubic hair away from victory, blah, blah, blah. Well, that doesn't get you anywhere unless it's horseshoes and hand grenades, right? All of our grandfathers told us that. So if you're going to play tight games, you got to make the field goal at the end of regulation, right, and get the hell out of New Orleans. That's how this works. You got to put your foot on Tom Brady's neck. You can't turn it over right before the half. You got to take care of Mahomes and continue to get after him. You can't leave the door open for these teams. So that's what's happening there. Now, as far as Herbert goes, that's very interesting. I saw a lot of people tweeting last night about, well, the Oregon offense, held him back, and it showed off what Marcus Mariota did. Okay, those are two different offenses. The only time Justin Herbert theoretically played under Chip Kelly's offense was his true freshman year under Mark Helfrich,
right?
Who's now a broadcaster. So what Mario Cristobal did was very different. Mario Cristobal is an offensive lineman. He wants to build Oregon front to back. He cares really deeply about the fronts, and he didn't want that guy to throw the ball downfield very much. They ran a lot of zone read. They ran a lot of very, very precise one-read routes, and they didn't want him uncorking his abilities for whatever reason. And they had a lot of success, and he was a top 10 pick. So it all worked out pretty good. Now, to see it at the NFL level, where he's standing up 6'6", and he can throw a ball accurately, consistently 60 yards down the field and beat professional football coverage, now that is different. And everybody and their mom looks like a great play caller when the kid can do that. It opens up your defense. It opens up your offense. It backs the safeties way off, and he makes people pay. He sees the field. I heard Brian Greasy say it like this, and I was thinking it when he said it, that the kid really sees the field so much better than you would expect a young person to see it. And I always thought he was an intriguing prospect, but I didn't see this coming. Obviously, Tom Telesco, the GM of the Chargers, did, and he's done a hell of a job. But unless they start winning some games, this kid's going to have a different head coach next year.
Well, let's pause there for a sec. I mean, I don't even think Oregon Duck fans saw this coming. You know, people who have watched this team play as closely as they possibly can. I mean, and it feels like forever ago in the Rose Bowl. But you'll remember he found a way to win the Rose Bowl running the football. That was
kind of his. To me, that was really that was a telling moment in his career. Those two games, the Pac-12 championship against what a lot of people thought was a way better Utah team with 5 or 6 NFL players at least running around on their defense. I mean, a really good defense and a really good secondary. And he came out and he showed all the looseness and confidence in that Pac-12 championship game and another damp night in Santa Clara. And then he came down and showed it wasn't a fluke in the Rose Bowl. And look, I mean, we talk about Cam Newton and his size and strength and power and how special that is and how it's so different. I mean, that's who Herbert is. I mean, Herbert's 6'6", 250.
Yes.
He's a freaking beast. And he might end up dismantling because of that and take too many hits. I've seen him take one too many already. But he is a really, really humble, nice kid who's been tucked up there his whole life in Eugene and played for an offensive lineman as a head coach. And now you're starting to see what arm talent and confidence can do wrapped into one. And, I mean, some of these guys he's throwing to were DoorDash delivery drivers last week. I mean, the Chargers have had a rash of injuries, and Keenan Allen went down last night too. And he definitely has been one of the biggest stories in football if you've been paying attention on a team that's not winning games.
I don't think there's any doubt. We're talking to Petros Papadakis, AM 570 LA Sports, Petros and Money Show, very successful.
And remember, Clay, the Chargers could very easily be winless if it wasn't for a touch-and-go pass interference penalty against A.J. Green.
That's a good point.
The Bengals.
Which feels like forever ago back in week 1, right?
Right, before COVID hit the NFL.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, so those both happened last night. On Sunday night, I believe, if I'm correct, everything kind of runs together, as I was saying earlier. The Lakers won Game 6. Now, a lot of people...
I had the greatest experience of my life, let me tell you.
Yes.
Now, you know that I am no Laker fan. I never really have been. But I appreciate and understand what they mean to the city, and I understand the brand and all that. And I do a local show here in L.A., which has been going for years. I think we're in our 15th season. I think it's my 14th season. We're called The Challenge on NBC.
Yes.
Local, and we come on after the pro football game. Fred Rogan, who is a national broadcaster for the Olympics and all that, and one of the most decorated broadcasters in the history of Los Angeles, him and I have done the show forever. And I really didn't want to go there and do a Laker masturbation show and, let's throw to LeBron sound and let's come back and let's compliment the bubble and all. And instead, what we had, I was in a fully operational newsroom connected to a studio, and we had the chopper up, and we had all those people running around shooting mortars by Staples Center, and we were talking to the helicopter guy and going rubber bullets, and I was freaking Walter Cronkite. It was the greatest night ever. I felt like Willy Wonka in the chocolate factory. And I was like, hey, show us Vermont, pull back. Let's see what's going on in East LA. After living in LA all these years and seeing all those car chases and talking about them on the radio and talking live and trying to avoid it if somebody dies or not look like a heartless bastard. I mean, just to be able to control the chopper on the local news in that room, it made what was usually an annoying night, which is any championship coronation, I don't care if it's a team I like, to a very fun one.
So for people out there who don't know that are listening to us, they have had for one of the LA staples on television is every time there's a car chase, they break in and take it live through the helicopters, right? And as you mentioned, sometimes there are unexpected, awful endings. Like a few years ago, it's been several years probably, but a guy committed suicide. And
I saw that. That was in college. That was like 20 years ago.
Yeah, okay, it's been a long time, but so every now and then they have a really dark ending, right? But in general, high-speed chase is an LA staple.
A guy pulled out a Desert Eagle in Vernon, which is the town that was inspired True Detective Season 2.
Yeah.
Some guy pulled out a Desert Eagle and was hanging out of the window and just firing it off. And they riddled him with bullets, and we did that one live.
Yeah. So this time you're taking the celebration of the Laker championship. How would you describe? I know you watched it live in that particular aspect of people that went outside and celebrated and everything else. To me, it felt somewhat muted because it occurred on a Sunday night during an NFL game and during an NFL weekend. And
they all thought it was coming Friday.
Yeah, right. So it felt like it was going to happen Friday, and then it happened Sunday. And then it's like, I mean, we barely talked about it on Monday because we talk a lot of college football and NFL on this show. And so people are like, hey, you hardly talked about it. I'm like, yeah, because my audience tunes in on Monday for football, and I don't think that many people care about basketball happening during football season.
Yeah, I think they have to answer for how down their ratings were. A lot of people have a lot of different theories as to why they were. There is no question that it just and Don McClain, who's a basketball analyst and an NBA person and somebody we respect highly, he co-hosted the show yesterday, and he said it. He said it wasn't the same. There was a detachment, there was a disconnect, and there's a lot of theories, and I'll leave that up to you as to why. But I didn't feel particularly connected with watching or needing to see it, as opposed to the Dodgers and the football and the other stuff, that even the F1 races that I've enjoyed watching. It never really grabbed a hold of me, and it certainly has in the past, without a doubt. But there was a detachment about the bubble because, there's something about the arenas, even if they're empty, that we are used to, Heinz Field and beyond. So I don't think they'll ever do this again. They'll obviously start their season a little later this year and then start to chip away and try to work back at it. And I think you'll quietly see them try to go back to what we're more used to when it comes to the NBA.
We're talking Petros Papadakis. We had a lot of college football. Lane Kiffin, were you stunned by the amount of success that he had against Alabama's defense?
No. I mean, Lane is not a bad play caller, and that's why people got excited about him in the first place. That's why him and Steve Sarkisian got jobs that had a lot of responsibility. Most experts will tell you long before they were ready to have those jobs. Do you know why they had those jobs?
Why did they have those jobs? Because of the USC dynasty.
No, because Pete Carroll was jealous of Norm Chow. Pete Carroll did not like Norm Chow. Look, you can go back to
I thought you meant the jobs after being the USC.
But they would have never gotten those jobs if Pete Carroll didn't push Norm out, and he didn't want to, and promote those guys and basically push those guys to everybody in the media and sell them to the world. And, Pete Carroll's obviously a very good football coach, and he recognized their play-calling talent. But any expert in the world, especially people like me who were around back then, will tell you that maturity-wise, Lane Kiffin and Sarkisian were nowhere close ready to have a college football head coaching job at a place like Washington or USC. And I believe the record shows that, not just the record of wins and losses, but the record of immature behavior. And, of course, the stuff that people actually talk about on air and the stuff that people talk about off air are, well, let's just say it's salacious. And that's why one guy got fired on a tarmac, and that's why one guy ended up basically, I mean, for lack of a better way to put it, drinking himself out of the job publicly, which is really humiliating, right? I mean, but there's a reason those guys got those jobs in the first place. They were good play callers. They communicated well with the quarterbacks on the field or up in the booth with Norm. But it was all Norm. I mean, Norm was the guy. USC never won a championship without Norm Chow calling the plays. Yet, the offensive quote-unquote geniuses that come out of USC are Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian. Never called plays for a championship team. So it is quite interesting. But, look, they know how to do it. I mean, they're really good offensive coaches. Now, can they recruit, coach a defense, keep everybody in the same kind of zone, so to speak, as far as the people you're responsible for as a college football coach, which is all the players, half the recruits, all their parents and the dumb crap they say, all your stupid-ass assistants and the stupid stuff they do, and probably a bunch of stuff that your donors and your AD, if you're your AD's guy, you're kind of responsible for what he does. I mean, these guys, it's a big umbrella of responsibility, and I can tell you for sure Lane and Steve weren't ready for that as head coaches. They've had a lot of hills and gullies because of that. But a place like Ole Miss is perfect for Lane because he can come and put on an offensive show and still lose the game. And you ask the question like, "Hey, could you believe that offense?" I mean, that's Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. That's great. Good for him.
How excited are you with the idea? At least the Big Ten going to be back soon, Pac-12 going to be back soon, Mountain West. It does start to feel like college football season is close to blossoming in full bloom, even though for many of us it feels that way already with the SEC back underway. But it's pretty cool, right?
Well, for you guys it does, and I enjoy football. I know the Big 12 quite well because of the years of work I've done on it. But out here on the West Coast, just to see all these players who made a promise to play just somewhere else, because that's the coach they committed to, even though they might have been recruited by a place that's actually playing. That part's been hard for me. And then just the whole, the cutting out of the people that make a living around sports. And like a Lakers championship, who makes a living around that? The people at the Staples Center that do security, the people that serve hot dogs, the people that park cars, the people that are janitors, the people that clean toilets, the people that sell jerseys, the people that sell bacon-wrapped hot dogs outside, known as danger dogs. It's great that we have sports and we have something to entertain the masses and kind of opioid us. But, I mean, those people are still being asked out of the equation while rich people make money. I mean, I still feel a little disingenuous about the whole thing, but I am very much looking forward to getting back to work because every day I watch college football and everybody's worth calling a game, except for me.
Well, I hope you're back soon, my man. And I appreciate you always being here with us on Tuesday, breaking everything down. We'll see what happens in this Braves-Dodgers series, whether the Chargers can redeem themselves and more. But I am super excited for more and more sports to be roaring back. Appreciate you, my man. Talk to you next week.
All right, Clay. Go Roll Tide there.
I need Tennessee to beat Kentucky. That's how things have fallen down. And I'm going, by the way, to the Tuesday night football game tonight. I'll talk about that a little bit more when we come back. The Titans hosting the Buffalo Bills for a rare Tuesday night NFL game. We'll close with that.